This is Emily Locke, and it's May 18, 2012, with
Shane MacRhodes.
And he's a member of the Gears Bicycle Organization.
Yeah, once I decided to ride more and not own a car personally, it became a lifestyle choice in that, I would, when I needed a car, I would rent one, and so it wasn't too restricting, but it also made me choose my home close to somewhere where I could work and shop and do all those things, and so it affected how I my daily life of what I chose to do, and made it a little bit more low impact in general, and a lot more sustainable, and just sort of living. It was pretty common for kids, definitely not as much for adults. I think that now it's almost flipped, in that a lot of the people who you see out riding are adults who are biking to work or whatever, and there are less kids. Statistics have shown that back in the 70s and 80s, more than half the kids walked or biked to school, for example. And now nationally those numbers are down to like 5 or 10% of kids walk or bike to school. And so we've seen those numbers going down, and so that's why the work that Gears and also Safe Routes to School that I work with is trying to change that and bring those numbers back up and make it easier and safer and more comfortable for kids and families to walk and bike again, and because that is it's the next generation of people that we want to have, those students getting active in their daily trips and being able to have safe streets for them and make it comfortable for families to bike more often, because it used to be, when I rode my bike to school, there were a lot of kids, racks filled up, and those numbers have gone down, and so now we're trying to get those back up again. Eugene's got a great history of biking. In the 70s, we were one of the first cities to install an off-street path network, and so our river path system was really sort of cutting edge back in the 70s, and the bike culture has been pretty strong here. But in the 80s and 90s, we sort of rested on our laurels and didn't really get a lot done, and then cities like Portland did pick up and do a lot of work and started to make more facilities that were safe and comfortable for cyclists. And so we've been plugging away with putting in bike lanes in Eugene, but I think that this next step that we need to take of creating more separated facilities is starting to happen. And with the completion of the pedestrian bicycle master plan and a strategic plan that the city has, and a lot of internal work that the city's doing, I have some good hope for the next 5-10 years that we'll see a change of getting more better, comfortable infrastructure in, that will get more people riding again.
So would you say that biking is part of Eugene's history and culture?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that we have some of the highest bike ridership in the country. I think there are a couple other cities that are around what we have: Davis, California, and Boulder, Colorado. But we have even a higher percentage of people who bike than in Portland, and so Portland has this reputation as being a very bike-friendly city. But I think Eugene is an even better city to ride in, because it's a little bit smaller, and our separated facilities are more comfortable, and there's a great bike culture that exists here, from strange freak bikes to fixies to mountain bikes to commuters and cargo bikes and family bikes. So there's a nice diversity and mix. Every year in August we hold a bike celebration, and it's always great to see the different kinds of bikes that come out, and people who play bike polo, or ride crazy bikes, or do our sound system for the bands that we have is powered by bikes. So people pedaling bikes power the stage, and so there's definitely a good, nice bike culture here that people come out and love to show off their cool bikes and just have fun together, sort of based around that. No, there are times when I need to use the car that we have, our family has, and you know, sometimes it's a really big load, or sometimes we're going a long way, and or I just don't have the time. But 95% of the time, I ride my bike. I just find that I can get all that I need to get done, and with that.
For long distances, like how far would be too long to travel on a bicycle for you?
Well, it depends on the time. I mean, my wife and I, right after we were married, we did a circumnavigation of the United States, and so we rode about 11,000 miles. But we took a year to do it, and so we go camping now with our kids, and we'll ride 20, 30 miles with our gear and them, and go camping, and but we can't ride with them yet 100 miles, but 50, 60 miles to go on a trip. We'll do that because part of the trip is actually our ride, and not just getting to, not just the place, but getting there. So there's really not any trip that's too long, but sometimes you're just restricted by time. I definitely wish that we had built our infrastructure for our country more, that we had more rail options, and then more separated bike facilities, so that it was easier to bike to other places on the country. Or for example, if I want to ride out to Country Fair this summer, it's not that far of a ride, but it's not very comfortable because it's on a very busy road. So I think that there would be more places that we could go if we had the right facilities.
Is all your family in gears, or is it just you?
Oh no, we have a family membership, and yeah, it's definitely important for I think my family, but we have a lot of other families who are part of Gears, because it's not, Gears used to be just a recreational club, but now it's an advocacy organization as well, and education. So we have a lot more people who are interested in not just the racing recreational side, but in the advocacy and education side of it. And so we have a lot more families involved too. It's very realistic. It's my reality every day. Like stop and get groceries and do things with the kids. You just have to, sometimes it takes a change in how you do things, and change can be hard. So in some ways it can be very hard because you have to change things. For me, it's very easy because it's not a change. It's my everyday existence. But I definitely recognize that for a lot of people, it's hard to make that change. But there's a mom that I worked with recently who just started riding to work and back 1 day a week, and then that got easy, so she started to do it more, and then she started to do some shopping, and then doing things with the kids. And you have to have the right bike to be able to do it, to be able to carry kids and cargo. You have to have a trailer or an extra cycle, like a long bike. I always ride my long bike with me because it allows me to carry 200 pounds of things. And so, even if I am out doing errands and then realize that, I need to do a big shop, I can go and get 6 bags of groceries and still carry them home without a problem. So there are lots of tools out there to making it easier.
And when you're riding your bike, do you ever consider how much easier it would be with a car?
Not really. It never really crosses my mind when I'm out there. Like, I've never been doing a trip where I was like, geez, I wish I had a car. There's oftentimes I've been in the car in traffic that I'd be like, man, I wish I was on the bike. So, but I've been doing it for a long time, and so it's sort of second nature.
What about the vulnerability to weather?
Yeah, that can be a challenge, but again, it's getting used to it, and I think you start out when it's nice, and then slowly work into when it's raining, maybe trying it when you don't have to do a long trip, and but I personally like to experience the weather, and I think that we're a lot more connected to what's going on around us if we, if it's raining and you get out in it. For me, I feel more alive, and I like to experience weather. my wife is not the same. Sometimes she's just like, it's just too cold and wet, and I don't want to be riding. And then we drive, and that works. I think if everyone just commuted when it was nice, that would be great. And I think that would be a small step. But I think a lot of those people who started to commute when it was nice would eventually start to ride when it was not so nice because they would enjoy the commute so much. I think they discover cycling or rediscover. A lot of people started biking and then left it when they weren't a kid and they thought, they had to drive. And that just became the natural progression. And so there's a lot of older people who sort of come back to it and like try it out and they're like, oh, geez, I still have these great experiences that I had when I was a kid, as an adult. And, there's a lot of adults who like that.
How effective is riding bikes instead of cars in reducing the emission of fossil fuels?
Yeah, there's definitely the environmental aspect, and the cars do emit greenhouse gases and bikes don't, and so I think that the environmental aspect is important. It's one of the reasons the city of Eugene is one of the reasons that they're working to increase bike ridership is to reduce the city's greenhouse gas emissions, because depending on the city, 25 to 30% of the greenhouse gas emissions of the city are from transportation. Some cities are as much as 50%, but so there's definitely greenhouse gas emissions from just living, in your house and heating and all of that, and in production of goods. But transportation is an important piece of where our greenhouse gases are coming from. And so if we can reduce the amount of trips by car, then we can reduce the amount of greenhouse gas emissions. 50 or more trips, the percentage of trips in the U.S. are 5 miles or less. And if we could just cut those trips by converting them to cycling, so that people were using their cars, but for just the longer trips, that we could reduce greenhouse gas emissions by almost 50% from our transportation system. And so it's big. I know that but I don't know the number in tons. But I think it's important that we really need to do it for the greenhouse gas emissions, and the environmental aspect is very, very important. But there's also what cars and driving do to our city as far as livability, and if we reduce the number of cars, then the health of our city is also more vibrant, and the health of people. That we have a very inactive lifestyle now, and that obesity epidemic is rising. And if we want to reduce obesity and increase people's health and the livability of our city and the environment, so I think it's a multifaceted thing too.